Hi, Mason.
Hello.
Hi, nice to meet you, Arjun.
Nice to meet you, Jacob.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Brian.
Hello. Hello, I'm Mapu.
Hi, I'm Logan. Nice to meet you again.
Nice to meet you.
Okay, so awkward introductions are over. Do you guys need to see her on that camera?
No.
Oh, okay.
Just a second.
Yeah. So let's see. So thank you for letting us to begin with. Thank you for letting us doing this project with us. And let's start with the scope of the whole thing.
Jacob, it's me. Okay, so the scope of this project, what we're gonna be doing is we're reviewing the expenditures budgeting process for the Lee Business School, and or for the dean's office specifically. And the things that we will be covering is the development of budgets for each areas, like the staff members and like the events that you guys have here. Also the process or the system for comparing actual expenditures to the budgeted ones, and then communication of variance results to appropriate levels, and other processes deemed relevant during the project as well. And then the final report detailing all findings will be delivered before May 1st.
All right, and just to ensure that we're following the internal standards, we'll be following standards 2130-A1, which you don't need to know any of that. Essentially, that just means that we will be evaluating the processes that are already in place so that we can make sure we're effectively and efficiently meeting your objectives.
And basically the objective of this is going off what Jacob said, just to ensure the appropriate processes and controls are in place to create the budgets, and to look at the various activities of the Lee Business School, and then also monitor actual expenditures and compare it.
Okay, so a little bit about the project plan. A lot of this is somewhat tentative, but there is a definite set of stuff that we do need to go through. We can talk about that more in later meetings. But yeah, about March 5th or sometime around that, you should be given an internal control questionnaire. That way you can fill that out and then you send that to us, and we can use it to help kickstart the project and better understand a lot of your internal controls and different processes.
So I'm Mason. I was the one you were talking to, and I wanted to thank you again for agreeing to meet today. It's kind of hard to get this meeting, but I'm glad we're all here. And I just wanted to talk about the confidentiality of this engagement. We all signed confidentiality agreements. We're not going to be telling anyone, not even our professor, about what goes on. No. But yeah, we just want to ensure that you felt comfortable in that regard.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, if we could double back. About the audit project plan, we also, in the first week of May, you will be given an audit report with findings and recommendations. There will also be an oral presentation to give you about the internal audit, and the final date will be given at a later time.
Okay.
All right, and are there any questions that you had? Any changes you wanted to the project plan?
No, that's fine.
All right. Well, thank you for meeting with us.
One thing,
Any other questions?
just to check on one thing. For any questions we have, should we be emailing you, or should we be emailing somebody else who works for you? Or
Email me. So you don't have any like specific questions for me now about my budget process and what we go through?
We did.
I feel like you need the information.
Okay.
Brian has all the lists.
Okay.
Yes, in regards to your business processes, more specifically, your finance process, your allocation process, and your spending processes. Are those your main business processes, or are there several others involved as well?
Let me just give you some info. I think
Okay.
to start,
Sounds
that might be
good.
helpful.
Sounds good.
So the Lee Business School has about 116 accounts. Some of them are budgeted, some of them are cash balance accounts. And so that's for the entire Lee Business School. That's for all the academic departments, institutes, centers. So I oversee all of those, but the Lee Business School Dean's Office, there's primarily, I would say 11 accounts that we use for like general expenses, which could include general operations, hosting, or travel. That's kind of like the big buckets that the expenses fall into. And then there's program-specific accounts, so there's events or expenses that we incur that have very dedicated accounts. So that's like Business Hall of Fame, Thought Leader, the Lee Professorships. There's an executive certificate for business administration that has its own account. So when people say, hey, I have an ECBA expense, like I know exactly which account it comes from. But you talked about the various units within the dean's office that need money to do things. And so that's the development team. We've got external relations, communications, technology, the dean himself, general office stuff, advising, GEE, career professional development, and then like various expenses that come from other departments. So those requests I receive from those groups of people generally fall into about like 10 accounts. So I am hoping to, through this process, that you all can illuminate or identify a very succinct and streamlined way to track those expenses, period. But going back a little bit, so I have been in this position for a year and a half. I've been at the university for 12 years, but I've been in this position for a year and a half, and when I came into this position, those units that I just listed kind of just spent money and said, hey, I spent some money, give me an account number. So last year, I asked for those units to give me a budget saying what they expected to spend in FY19 so that I could have like a heads up about the expenses that I would be seeing. So I have those numbers, but here's an example of a budget that someone gave to me. So y'all can have that. And so as you can see, it's listed on that template in a lot more buckets than general operations, hosting, or travel.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I get, a dozen of those, and I have to figure out the best way to condense that into something
Right.
usable that I can then refer back to like those 10 accounts that we generally use. And the reason why there's 10 accounts is because we have different funding sources, there's different rules for different types of money. There's state money, gift money, self-supporting revenue that we generate ourselves. And like the university has rules, but some of the money can be used in different ways. So for example, like hosting is only allowed on very specific accounts. So if someone says they need hosting, I've got 3 different accounts that I generally use, but I don't just have like one account that has a bunch of money. So I'm trying to figure out how to like streamline or like identify those. I know how much money is in every account, but if I need to provide an overall dashboard to the dean, like I want something that's very easy to look at, because I like looking at the raw data, but not everybody else does.
Right.
Okay.
And then so here's this that I printed out. So when I say general operations, there's a list of spend categories. On the left-hand side, it's like 3 pages back and front.
Okay.
So there's general operations, hosting, and travel, and they all have their own ledger account. So again, when someone writes on their budget that they're gonna do registration, they clump it in with travel, but it's SC0190, so that's actually general operations. So is this giving you a
Yes.
larger
Yes.
better?
And this is definitely gonna help us when
Yes.
we make the questionnaire, so that
Okay, yeah.
any other questions we
I
have.
understand I'm
it's
gonna
more
answer a questionnaire, but I don't want to spend a lot of time typing
Right.
things
Yeah.
out. That's,
Right.
I don't have, you know. So kind of explaining it in person might be a little bit more efficient.
Yes.
And then this is kind of just like a breakdown of the stuff that I told you about, like the units that request money for the dean's office, and then like and so when we go through this, I can share like other information about the spreadsheets that I create for each account.
Okay.
But I feel like this information might help you in
Right.
moving forward.
Right.
Yes, we get like a bigger picture of it.
Right.
Right.
Okay, and so based on this information, do you have any additional questions, or does that kind of answer your first question?
It answers it.
No, how about the, internal controls, for the expenditures?
So I review every expense that happens, like in Lee Business School, every reimbursement, every P card charge, every anything that deals with money, like I have to review it.
Okay.
And that's done in Workday, which is our financial management system that all of the state of Nevada higher education uses. But like my security roles, everything comes to me. But that being said, that comes to me after the money's already been spent. That's not like a pre-approval process.
I was just about to ask that.
I think a good thing that we could ask is maybe like, is there any certain areas you think that would be of like particular help in looking at, or you know, just to kind of start off as to like if there's anything you think that we could maybe help with, or is it more of like a blanket statement?
The
where-
thing I'm really looking for is a template or some sort of spreadsheet that helps me track the proposed budget that I received to the actuals.
Okay.
But the challenge there is that the proposed budget I received is not broken down into the spend categories and like the ledger accounts that UNLV uses. And so if that means putting together a different budget template that I give to all of those units at the start of the fiscal year, that's fine with me. That
Okay.
thing I passed out, like I'm not married to that. That can be something totally different.
Okay.
Okay, well, so right now I think we've got most of the stuff we need for our preliminary questionnaire. Yeah, that's all the questions you guys have, right? Yeah, right?
Just to clarify again, so, you ask them of like what their budget should be, and then like at the end of the year, that's when you look over everything and see how much they actually spent and stuff?
Well, we haven't completed a full year yet, like, so
Mhm.
it was for FY19, which
Mhm.
we're a little bit more than halfway through.
Right.
And so because their proposal doesn't match the way UNLV does its accounting, and then all of those expenses are in like 10 different accounts,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to take me a long time at the end of the fiscal year to actually generate that report to see if anyone was on budget or not.
Okay, good.
And so moving forward, I would like for this to not be so time consuming. I'd like to have a more standard template to give to each unit so that when they do their budget, it's in line with what information I see in Workday.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Okay, I think we're all good then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Have fun.